Something I wanted to do for TDS was doing the top 5 worst ways to lose or die. However, that game was, well, a tower defense game. However, for Guts and Blackpowder, this game is a first-person shooter game, kinda. So that's what we're doing for this game instead.
Number 14.
The 5th worst way to die is by getting chopped in half by a zapper. As we all know, if a enemy, or at least if your teammate's sapper gets infected and gets eaten alive or whatever and dies, they become a literal undead zapper. However, there is still enemy zombie zappers that spawn around the map every occasionally and are usually pretty beefy, but not really something that you should be necessarily too worried about. The only thing that you should be worried about is when they are literally charging to attack you, because once they start lifting that axe and literally aiming at you, this is when your entire life may flash before your very eyes, because if they hit you with their axe, it will deal an insane amount of damage, nearly one-shotting you. And if you already took in some damage beforehand and then a zapper literally damages you, then you may have just gotten one-shotted right then and there. Quite honestly, this is one of the most worst ways to die, especially when at one second you were kind of, I guess, a little bit of beefed up or at least healthy, and then the next second you were literally chopped in half by a zapper. Especially when these guys can, well, be very easy to actually take down, but also very easy to dodge the enemy zapper's axes. Literally, you can just, well, walk right around them and just dodge that axe, so it's not really too hard, or at least easy, to actually die from these guys, or at least get hit. But when that does happen to you, you basically look like a fucking idiot compared to everyone else there, because, like, getting hit by a zapper's axe is kind of a dumb way to actually lose a shitload of health, especially when the zapper is aiming at one of your teammates, but then you come around the corner and take the axe instead.
Number 12.
Into the number 4 spot is being eaten alive. As we all know, once a zombie grabs you, you are essentially, well, completely incapable of actually moving, but then you'll eventually push him off. However, once a second one actually starts to grab you as well, you will actually slowly start to die as they are literally biting your entire neck off. And then if a third and then a fourth one start to dogpile on you, it'll increase just how much faster you die until eventually a fifth one just pretty much insta-kills you. And quite honestly, this is probably one of the most brutal ways of dying. However, it is kind of, or most likely, very avoidable, because I mean, like, as long as there's only 1 or 2 zombies grabbing at you, it's not really a big deal. Especially when, well, if you have a bunch of teammates nearby, the second a zombie grabs you, the literal millisecond later, a regular teammate will just slash you and just, well, completely free you. So being eaten alive is not that common. However, something that is very infuriating is that when you are actually being dogpiled and then no one around you actually even helps, like, at all. They just, like, stare at you, die, or maybe are too busy doing other shit and are completely unaware that one of their teammates is literally being eaten alive by a literal buffet. And this is quite honestly one of the most infuriating ways to die, because you are completely incapable of actually saving yourself, and all of your hope resides to, well, your teammates. But then again, it is kind of on you for literally jumping, dolphin diving into the zombie horde to actually fight them, so maybe this is a lesson learned.
Number 7.
Number 3 spot, one of the most common ways to die is the bomb. I'm pretty sure I don't really have to go into a explanation thing about this guy, but essentially you get too close, one of the dumbest ways I see people actually dying is either running into the bomber when he's literally lighting his bomb and dying, or by essentially getting too close to the bomber and, well, someone else shooting the bomber and, well, killing the guy who was literally trying to bait the bomber. This is quite honestly one of the most hilarious ways to die, because, like, who doesn't like laughing at someone who just was perfectly healthy and walking around just fine and then just insta-killed by a giant explosion, especially when they die from their own stupidity. Like, as an example, these clips where this guy just randomly runs into him for some reason. There is also an achievement where you can use essentially a bayonet gun's knife to essentially slash and kill a bomber while you're running at a zombie, and quite honestly, that is one of the most, like, bruh type of achievements, because that is literally just kill yourself and you will get this essentially. But the bombers, man, it is pretty funny and kind of a hilarious way to see people just die from a massive explosion, either from your fault or from your teammates' fault, because they for some reason shot the bomber while you were trying to bait the zombie.
Number 11.
This is just a brain dead one, quite honestly, and this is just dying from in-game map actions. So as an example of this, when I say that, is the Leipzig map, where that guy lights a barrel of explosives, blows open the gate, and if you're actually too close, you can actually die from that explosion, which I do have a clip of the priest doing, which is pretty funny. This is one of the funniest deaths because of a giant explosion and them just corpses just getting ragdolled all over the place. And there's plenty of other maps that also do that exact same thing, where if you get too close, you can, well, die from an explosion, or just like on Cobb, you can actually die from the falling drawbridge if you are too close to it. Quite honestly, that is pretty hilarious, since you literally just died from something that was supposed to give you hope and access to the next area. And funnily enough, because of these actions of people dying from in-game shit, there is of course an achievement for Cobb and Leipzig, I believe, where if you die from the bridge on Cobb, you get an achievement, and if you die on the explosion on Leipzig, you get an achievement there. So quite honestly, it's pretty much a do it if you want the achievement, but I don't have them because, well, I'm just a Giga Chad. But still, it is funny and embarrassing as hell if you actually do die from those explosions or any other map things.
Number 1.
Check this out.
Number 1 spot is breaking your ankle. This is by far one of the most worst ways to die in Guts and Blackpowder from fall damage. So I'm pretty sure you all know about this, but if you jump off, or I guess fall off a ledge that is a bit too high, probably more than like 5 feet, you will actually break your ankle and, well, be completely screwed at that point, because there's nothing you can actually do to repair your ankle. And the only thing that is left for you is 2 options. Number 1, zombies just eat you alive right then and there since you can't move at all. Or number 2, your survivor teammates just put you out of your misery by a nice bullet to the head. If that isn't tragic enough, hilariously tragic enough, when you actually break your ankle, there is a sound notification of you breaking your ankle, or at least someone breaking their ankle, and then screaming out in pain for breaking your ankles. And that kind of lets everyone else know in the server, hey, you better put that guy out of their misery immediately. Quite honestly, it's so funny to see a guy, for an example, break their ankle, and then everyone instantly pulling out their revolver and just shooting them with no hesitation. God, that will never ever stop being funny. And it's especially funny when on the map Catacombs, if you don't actually make the successful jump onto the bridge of the haystacks and actually just land on the boat and not the haystacks, you can actually break your ankle. And the funny part is that even if you do land on the boat but break your ankle, your teammates can still shoot you, and that is still declared a loss. This death is quite honestly very humiliating and is obviously one of the worst and most hilarious ways to die in Guts and Blackpowder.